Let's see what happens here. I'm not in frame. You're still tall. Why are you a tall guy? Are you?
Is it recording?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I don't know. I'm kind of mixed feelings about this. I wonder when the dog is going to start barking. Yeah, so here we are. Well, we can do this every day, you know. We don't have to do it all at once. Do I see a red dot?
It reminds me of those like little snips they have in like Saturday Night Live or something, you know, like strange poetry. And they read a little excerpt of a book every day.
Well, you know, it's just gorgeous right now, this time of day. And it's like every day is like this. The sun goes down over those mountains. Those are the Siskiyous.
Yep.
And it's just gorgeous. It's orange and little reds and burgundies. It's just so beautiful. Do you find that is the case everywhere, or is this like a special place here at Hotlum?
I think every place is special. I grew up watching sunsets over the cinder cones in San Luis Obispo County they call the Seven Sisters. And I think I just got used to watching sunsets and try to live where there's spectacular sunsets.
Yeah. So you've created an ecosystem restoration camp at Hotlum, which is, what is your intention for this camp? What's the plan? What do you hope?
Well, I think we're creating it. You know, it's an emergent vision. It started for me about 15 years ago when I became interested in contemplative practice in nature, I called it then, and was introduced to eco-psychology. And so the purpose of this place is really about how do we reestablish our relationship with the rest of the biosphere? How do humans come into balance and harmony in these times when much of the planet is under duress due to human activity?
Do you think that people understand this, or is it something that we have to grow the market for because they don't really know what this is about?
I don't know if it's about understanding. I mean, I think people are hearing more and more about climate change and about environmental degradation and the need for restorative practices and regenerative practices. And simultaneously, I don't think it's just a cognitive, oh, now we understand it. I think we actually have to have an emotional response that we take action upon.
So when I've been here now a couple of months, so really the first thing you said to me was listen to the land. Let the earth tell you what it wants and needs. Don't rush in and have the solution from your intellect. I think that's really good advice. I think that's...
I'm not sure I came up with it. I think people have been doing that for millennia, and I know Bill Mollison speaks about that. Take your time, notice. I had a crazy idea that maybe someday, before you can get a building permit, you have to live on the land for 1 full year in order to understand the cycles. Like, where are the shadows? You know, where's the appropriate place to do things?
So, I mean, when I look out, I have a kind of a, like, informed view. So I'm looking and I see these trees. Maybe they're, how many meters would you say?
Well, that one there is probably 22 meters, maybe.
You think? I'm not sure. 1, 2, 3, 4. I would say it's probably like 12.
12 meters.
Maximum 15. And I mean, maybe you've got some 20-meter ones over here, the ones behind there. But we know that they're about 22 years old because we know when it was clear cut the last time.
Down on this section of the land, yeah, there's not much older than maybe 25 or 26 years old because they probably left a few that were too small to cut. Yeah. The adolescents they left behind.
So the 5-year-olds and the 7-year-olds that were still here, they're the ones that are the tallest now.
Yeah.
So, like if I look at that, I would say that those particular trees are a pale comparison to what the climax equilibrium is here. They're tiny.
Yeah, when you go up in the wilderness, there are ponderosas that are 6-7 feet in diameter. And these are just a couple feet at the most.
How big is the biggest one that the grandmother?
I don't think I've seen the biggest ones, but
the grandmother that you
the one that Lauren calls Grandma Ponderosa, the one that she's had a relationship with, I don't know, I think maybe 8 feet, so 2.5 meters in diameter.
So the two of us, could we get our arms around it?
No.
3 of us? 3 people?
No.
4 people?
No.
5 people?
Maybe
6?
with long arms.
5? Okay. So, but that's hundreds or even more years.
Hundreds. They grow pretty fast.
So, I mean, we're not going to see that in our lifetime.
No, this is something we're leaving a legacy for future generations.
So really the actions that are being taken here are not really in self-interest.
Well, I guess it depends on how you define the self, but that might take us down a philosophical road.
Well, I mean, it's in the collective interests or human interests, but also the Earth's interests.
Sometimes I think self is defined very individualistically, and sometimes it's defined more collectively or more like as a whole. And it certainly is in the interest of the biosphere of all the living organisms on the planet to participate in this restoration work. And then that means it's in my personal interest if I'm part of everything.
So I'm pretty interested in the hydrology. I have a feeling that this particular biome has a important role to play in capturing and then in sort of recycling or recharging the lower hydrological cycle. Do you think about those things?
Well, we're certainly above the Shasta River, which feeds the Klamath River, and the valley below us has amazing springs. There's even a place called Big Springs, and this mountain behind us is the tallest mountain in the area and sticks up like a sore thumb, being a volcano, and captures a tremendous amount of moisture. It has the longest glacier in North America on it. And some of the glaciers are still growing on Mount Shasta. Now, and so it provides water for most of Northern California.
Now, some of these people who are here, they have a lot of crystal and mystic interpretations. What are they talking about, Shasta?
I don't know about like the mystical elements as much as I think that everybody I've ever spoken with has had some reaction when they've seen the mountain for the first time. And it's sacred to all the indigenous tribes around here, have creation stories about the mountain, and a lot of people come here for spiritual retreats. A lot of people come here to drink the water. It's some of the purest water in North America. And
actually, people come from all over the world to come here, don't they?
Yeah.
The Japanese have some affinity because it sort of looks, the mountain looks a bit like Mount Fuji.
Yeah, I think there's a kind of a idea of a sister relationship between the two mountains.
Wow.
Yeah.
But actually, so the biodiversity, the soils, the hydrology is critically important, but you're also thinking about the psychology of the people who come here. What do you think is the role of Hotlum beyond ecology?
Yeah, my first interest when I dreamed up having a camp was an eco-psychology camp where people could do retreats in nature, not, go to a building and sit indoors and talk about psychology that's related to humans' relationship with ecology and the ecosystems, but to actually be immersive. And so I think it's really, really important. And as we know now with the emergent modality of ecotherapy, that there's tremendous benefit for humans to be out in nature.
So what is it? What are the benefits that you can you detail what kind of benefits might
There's
accrue?
many, many benefits. The way that our bodies respond, our immune systems respond, our nervous system responds to, say, trees, and being in an oxygenated area with the smells that the trees offer, because our olfactory sense influences our perceptions profoundly and our emotions, that we actually become healthier and we become more resilient. Our immune systems are boosted by being out in nature. There's been studies that have shown that dirt is more effective than Prozac for depression. And there's modalities where people are out there doing therapy by working in the garden or by communing with trees in a Japanese modality, Shinrin-yoku, where it's a mindfulness-based kind of approach where we're really opening our senses and allowing our nervous system to respond to the quiescence of the trees. And
Quiescence? That's a word I don't recognize.
well, when you're sitting here, there's this calm, there's this quietude that you can almost hear the silence, even though we're hearing the birds and we're hearing the trees rustling. It's like almost like a lullaby, and it's so soothing. And we all need to be soothed. We live in a society that's very, very revved up, and we have to get to appointments, and we're on the freeway going really fast, or we're on public transit and we're in front of flickering screens, and it's very disorganizing to the nervous system. But our nervous system is attuned to nature. For millennia, we've lived in relationship with nature. And so being in nature is like coming home.
Well, if I'm a test subject, then I'm 67 years old, and was talking to some people around here, I think Paul and others, and they said, "Oh, it's challenging to be here," but actually, it really feels quite healthy somehow, and I maybe feel younger. Is that a possibility?
Maybe more vital and healthier. Your immune system's certainly getting stronger, and you're experiencing fresh air and clean water, and you're walking on a regular basis. And you also came from Southern California. That environment was probably a little different than here.
Well, it was very different. Yes, it was kind of built up and busy and kind of mental and physical, sort of in a infrastructural human way, abiotic systems. But there's beauty down there too. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to admit it's quite lovely. I think all the surfing, and I couldn't quite understand it. We were supposed to be socially distancing, but they were arresting surfers, and I thought, well, could there be a better way to isolate yourself than go surfing by yourself? I mean, really, that seemed quite good. But now I feel like this is a good place to be. This is maybe the best place to be at this crazy time. Do you think that a few more people coming to visit and to work here would be a good idea for them and for Hotlum?
I think that, people with, the right intentions would benefit greatly from being here. Siskiyou County is a very, very rural county with a very low population, and we've had much fewer of the incidences of COVID and no deaths. There are other counties that have had zero. But I think that, in these troubling times, and even prior to events like, COVID and pandemics, people turn to nature as a place to rejuvenate themselves. And simultaneously, we have to give back. We have to be in a reciprocal relationship with nature. It can't just be about us being nurtured. We have to nurture nature. And so this is the beauty of the Ecosystem Restoration Camp's model. This vision of people going into places that have been damaged and tending to them and caring for them. And we all know that caring for someone else is good for us. It gets us out of our own process of poor me. And if we tend to the earth, the soil, and the plants, and the animals, the water systems, even the air is improved. And we're improved in our physical health along the way.
Well, that's well said. So, this is Hotlum. We're here on Mount Shasta in Northern California, and we have a forest situation with huge amounts of moisture coming off the Pacific Ocean and coming inland and supposedly being captured and then recharging the cycle in the lower hydrological cycle here. But all over the world, there's all kinds of different biomes. Can you imagine camps in other biomes, like in places where there are mangroves at the edges of oceans, or in coral reefs in the tropics, or wetland restoration?
Yeah.
Desert restoration? What about
the San Gabriel Mountains down in Southern California? I have a sister who lives up above San Diego in the mountains, and they have horrific fires there. She's been evacuated at least twice since she's lived there. And, there are areas of Colorado that are having incredible pine beetle problems. There's so many different arid places that need to be treated kindly, and the water hydrological system needs to be restored. And then there's the Pacific Northwest that has a tremendous amount of water, and it's very moist, and it's a very important area. Or say in South America, there are jungles that are being clear-cut in vast swaths, and that's affecting what some people call the lungs of the earth. So yeah, there are many places in the world.
So, yeah, that's my experience, that everywhere in the world there's a chance for restoration, and that there are a lot of people whose work is not very meaningful to them. They're doing it to survive, but I don't think they love what they're doing. Do you think that restoration could be a livelihood for large numbers of people?
I think it would take a huge transition economically in the way that we subscribe value to things. How do we value restoration work? It's similar to, child care or nursing or teaching. There's so many professions that we have not, assigned a value to, that make them, financially profitable to even the people working in those fields. But they're crucial to society. They're crucial to the health and well-being of humans. And restoration work is crucial to the health and well-being of the planet. What could be more important? So if we value that and make it possible for people, then yes. And I think a lot of young people would like to do something that's going to help the future. I think they're looking to the future.
So, in a sense, we're looking past materialism. We're looking to another intention for human civilization, meaning for people, work that is meaningful, work that is purposeful, that is needed.
Yeah, I guess this almost, moves toward, values and what I would call spirituality. How do we relate to these living systems rather than maybe the systems that, we've invented, like the monetary systems or these technical systems, technological things have become more valuable than biological beings. And I think that that is something that we need to shift in a deep psychological way. In other languages like Potawatomi, they actually speak of living things in a very different way, with reverence and a sense of that they are sentient. And we speak of, almost like the stock market is a living entity, or a corporation has personhood, but we don't provide personhood to rivers, or personhood to a mountain that provides the water for the rivers. And so perhaps through living in relationship, by doing restoration work, we'll start to change that paradigm.
Well, for you you had other careers in your life as a psychotherapist, as a corporate advisor, as all kinds of different things. How did you find your way out here? Is that
I was walking along the Trinity River, and it just became really clear to me that this was to be my life's work, and that was well over 15 years ago. Yeah.
So you also have a career together with others who are also here as a wilderness guide. What's that like?
Well, it's kind of a term that some of us use to describe a certain form of rites of passage work, where we're supporting people in their own self-initiated ceremony in the wilderness. And it's transformative. It's a process that is pan-cultural and is done in many, many different ways. And we strive to honor, what is being called forth in that individual and celebrating the changes that they need to go through in a very systematic way, but specifically in nature, in wilderness areas. One of the reasons why Hotlum was such an important location is because we're adjacent to the wilderness. We're right backed up against the Mount Shasta wilderness area. And so being in areas where there isn't mechanized travel, where there isn't the kind of, energetic patterns that you even have in a beautiful park, or that you might have, at a beach. They're beautiful places, but wilderness has a very special connotation in our understanding of it in the United States, and it has deep spiritual value. And so a wilderness guide, in that sense, is someone who's supporting people to spend time alone in solitude in a safe way in the wilderness.
Well, if you had the opportunity to speak to people all over the world who might be contemplating what their relationship with ecosystem restoration camps movement, or a specific ecosystem restoration camp, or a specific biome might be, what would you tell them?
Be curious. Just allow your curiosity to lead you.
Mosquito.
We've got a couple little mosquitoes here. I think curiosity is one of the fundamental superpowers of human beings. And I love the fact that we can be really, really curious. You've traveled the world following your curiosity about how are ecosystems restored. And some people are trackers and they like to follow animals, or other people want to go out and study the plants, or other people want to study their own heart and how they're responding to things. And so I would say follow your curiosity, and if that leads you to being curious about ecosystem restoration, you want to go to a camp, just go for it.
And I mean, do you think, like, here it's cold at night. It's hot in the daytime. There's physical work to do. There's certainly massive complexity in looking at the biodiversity and looking at how the systems function. But do you think that the people are ready to think about that and how interesting these kinds of situations are? Or will they miss cappuccino and, I don't know.
And also, I mean, my experience is this is a pretty gentle environment in many ways. We're in California, and there's songs about how gentle the California weather is. And simultaneously, if you're here in the middle of winter, you can probably expect to see some snow, and you know, we're definitely a campground, you know.
There's an airplane going on.
And yeah, and there's always...
And trains go by every once in a while.
We're not far from a paved road.
It's like 2.5 miles or something, isn't it?
3.5.
3.5 miles from a paved road. Well, okay.
Yeah. But people adjust. You know, our nervous systems are designed to adjust to things. And so, you know, you spend some time in a different environment without air conditioning and you adjust to it. Spend some time without heating, you adjust to it. And then that's what wilderness guides are for, is to help you learn how to layer your clothes, or to, you know, use evaporative cooling when it's, you know, hot.
I like putting the water in the hat.
Yeah.
And let it cool. Oh my, that
a lot of appropriate technologies that we can use. People live in much, much more difficult climates around the world. Full time.
We're kind of losing the light.
We are. It's getting dark.
Is there anything that comes to your mind that you want to talk about for a moment? Because I can see we're still visible.
I think the most important thing right now in these times of great transition is that we follow our hearts. You know, as Charles Eisenstein has written about, you know, the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible. Trust your heart. And if that leads you to wanting to go to an ecosystem restoration camp or to do a solo in the wilderness, just pursue that. And there are lots of opportunities to learn about it on the internet. And simultaneously, you're not going to get there on the internet. I really believe what Gil Scott-Heron said, that the revolution will not be televised, and it won't be found in the zombie apocalypse either. I really believe that we need to come back to nature and restore our relationship, and there's no better way to start that than ecosystem restoration camps.
Well, let's keep having this conversation, and let's make it public so that people can hear what you have to say, and we can find the people who need to come to Hotlum.
Or they'll find us.
Or yeah,
on YouTube.
But when they find us, they'll come. I think it's not virtual reality here.
No.
And I mean, you've seen the bear?
Not this year.
Not this year. Last year you saw the bear?
We've seen signs of the bear this year, but not this year.
Okay. Well, I'm waiting for it to come down and visit me. I think we're going to hang out. I hope it'll be, you know, convivial. Great to have this opportunity, and let's do it.
Thanks, John.
Often.
Thank you, John. Thanks for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I mean, there's no place I'd rather be, and there's a lot of places I can't be. So this is exactly the right spot for me. Thank you so much.
Ta-da!
Here. Let's see if you can take a look at it. Just